is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
The UFL Championship audience drops sharply from the 2024 ratings. Do you believe this is a sign that they should make some changes within their setup? Former Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander signs a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. Is this the boost that defense needs to help Lamar Jackson get to the Super Bowl? An NFL rookie quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, failed to appear in court after a speeding ticket this past Tuesday. Could this display of reckless behavior cost him his NFL dream? All that and more on this edition of Total Football Talk. Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk, episode 89. I am your host, Drew Willingham, and we are back to discuss the DC Defenders post record-setting stats in 2024 UFL Championship victory. Again, I am Drew Willingham. This week, rolling solo as Ryan McCarthy is unable to make it, and Cole is still on hiatus as we are here for episode 89 to discuss a bunch of things on today's slate. NFL, UFL, CFL, all today here for episode 89, brought to you by Comey Media and Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. And yes, we have much to discuss on today's show. Thank you to those of you who are watching via X, YouTube, and Twitch in this current moment, and those of you watching the shorts on many platforms beyond the said ones that we just discussed. We got to talk about the UFL Championship that we just saw from this past weekend, Week 2 action in the CFL, as well as the first game for Week 3 that happened last night, and some NFL news that's come down the pipe over the past week. And one of those news completely did this to me. What? Absolutely. The questions are coming. You are here, and we are ready to rock and roll. Let's go ahead and take this on into the opening drive and get us started with the first set of topics.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Ready.
And here with the opening drive, again, we got to discuss the UFL Championship that just took place from this past week, as this is our main thumbnail that we have right here. And we'll talk more about that later in the show as well. But we got to take a look at the UFL Championship that we just saw from this past week, and it was an absolute beatdown. 58-34 was your final score in this UFL Championship. And the DC Defenders absolutely showed up and shelled out in this contest right here. They absolutely decimated their contest with the Michigan Panthers. They absolutely destroyed them. I mean, 58-34 is a score that you cannot come back from in a game when you're down by 24 points, let alone, I mean, you can, but not to the magnitude that you want. And it was just merely impossible for this Panthers team to make that happen in this contest. The UFL championship was one-sided from the start of the game to the end, and I cannot say that enough how bad it was for one side and not and perfect for the other. As Jordan Ta'amu for the DC Defenders, 21-28 on the day, 390 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles, even added 8 carries on the day for 28 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. 5 total touchdowns on the day, 4 passing, 1 rushing. Deion Jackson also added 11 carries on the ground for 46 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Chris Rowland had 6 carries for 53 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. And Abram Smith added 10 carries for 63 yards. The rushing attack was absolutely on fire with 35 carries combined on the day for 190 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, the 1 by Rowland, the 2 by Deion Jackson, and the 1 by the quarterback, Jordan Ta'amu. 4 touchdowns on 35 carries and 190 rushing yards. Absolutely insane video game numbers, but it looked great watching it as a fan. Jaden Mickens had 6 receptions for 132 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown, along with Ty Scott, who had 1 reception for 73 yards. Yes, he had 1 reception. It was a long one for 73 yards, but that touchdown made a big difference as it was 1 of the 4 thrown by Jordan Ta'amu. The defense for the Defenders, 2 sacks and an interception, that being by Keandre Thomas. And Matt McCrane was perfect for special teams as he was 2 for 2 on the day with the field goals with a total of 6 points. Bryce Perkins, 21-35, 338 passing yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception for the Michigan Panthers. He even added 4 carries for 8 rushing yards as well. It just wasn't enough to help them get over the hump, as even if he didn't have that 1 passing interception, they still would have been down by 24 points, and it still was not good enough to come back against this DC Defenders team. They were absolutely on fire from the start of the game to the end. Nate McCrary for the Panthers, 6 carries for 62 yards and a rushing touchdown, as well as Malik Turner, who had 10 carries for 10 receptions for 168 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Still, when you look at those numbers with Bryce Perkins, what they did leading up to this UFL championship, they did great. They just fell short because they needed all-around support because their defense was absolutely terrible on this day. They only had 1 sack, and that was it. Other than that, they were absolutely terrible. And, COC Mariner, their other receiver for the Panthers, 4 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. You waste all that production between McCrary, Turner, Mariner, even Perkins to an extent. Yes, he had an interception, but all around, the Panthers' offense was gelling pretty well. They scored 34 points, but their defense couldn't contain the Defenders, which is why they gave up 58 points. And when the Defenders have no turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions, it makes it really hard when your offense is converting, but your defense can't stop them, and there's nothing you can kind of, roll it on over into to fall back on. So because they couldn't fall back on anything but just their offensive play, their defense was shoddy. Their special teams, was okay, but overall, it was not looking good for the Panthers from start to finish, minus their decent play by their offense. But overall, it was just absolutely tough to watch. 58-34 was your final score in this contest. Jordan Ta'amu was snubbed for the league MVP by Bryce Perkins. He was snubbed for the league MVP, but it doesn't matter because the most important MVP that you can win is the championship game MVP, the final game of the year MVP. And with his display, he not only won a championship ring this season in 2025, he has a championship MVP now. He now has the UFL championship MVP trophy. Jordan Ta'amu has been with this team since they were in the XFL a couple years ago, stayed with the team, and moved with them to the UFL. This is now the second year of the UFL, the second year that we've seen this team in a championship race. They couldn't make it to the final. They couldn't make it all the way through last year and win. They did their best. They were just short. This year, they made the best of it because they absolutely beat down the competition in the Panthers. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's happy out there somewhere because this league season is over. That's why if you watch the story that I had on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook today, I had The Rock's background music because the final boss was cooking with yet another championship game in another completed season. The second completed season, well, the third since the second since they merged with the USFL, but the third overall, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, since Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson brought back the XFL. I could be mistaken. I think that's what it could be, the fourth. Maybe they had 2 years with the XFL. I got to go back and look. It's slipping my mind. But at least 3 years now, The Rock has been in charge of this league. He's had investors and he's had other people that have been keeping more of a closer eye on it because, yes, he's in Hollywood and, on the board of directors for WWE and doing the things that he's doing there. But overall, you got to be happy with the fact that you have completed at least now 3 full seasons of the of the UFL. And now, when you're talking about expansion to possibly going from 8 teams to 12, you got something to back up on because you've got fully completed seasons. The one thing that's concerning, though, is the ratings, because the ratings have dipped significantly since the beginning of the 2024 season. And we're going to talk more about that in the time to come throughout this show as we got, more games to recap. We got 4 more games to recap in the opening drive, all those being through the CFL. But we're going to have that in like a part 2 of the opening drive. But because of that, we're going to go to our first commercial break after this part 1 of the opening drive. And when we come back, we will have part 2 of the opening drive here after this message.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Hey!
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony, or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids from the Block, New Edition,
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, episode 89. I am your co-host, Drew Willingham, as we are live to discuss many things throughout the realm of professional football. With that being said, let's go ahead and take this on into our next set. We've already recapped the UFL Championship to the best of our abilities. Now, let's take it on into the CFL. And here with the CFL, we're going to start this off with last week's contest that was Friday night, 7:30 contest between the Alouettes and the home team of the Ottawa Redblacks. And this game right here was definitely one that was not close from the jump. It was absolutely dumpster pelican worthy from start to finish for the Ottawa Redblacks. And when you look at it for what it is, it was definitely tough to be an Ottawa Redblacks fan last week, let alone a fan of the CFL watching this game right here. As the Alouettes were definitely in the driver's seat from the start to finish, Davis Alexander, 23 of 32 for 344 yards in this game. One touchdown and an interception, along with one carry for 3 yards. Travis Thies, 12 carries for 75 yards on the day, along with Caleb Evans, who had one carry for 1 yard and a touchdown. Tyler Snead, 4 receptions, 117 yards on the day, along with Austin Mack, who had 5 receptions for 103 yards. James Letcher Jr. did receive the one lone reception touchdown, as he had 4 receptions for 37 yards on the day. The Alouettes defense, though, was absolutely pounding it, as they had 2 sacks on the day for 3 interceptions, absolutely beating down those mother, father, and Redblacks. Jose Maltos, perfect on the day for field goals, which is why they absolutely smacked around the Redblacks like a bunch of redheaded stepchilds, because they had a completion percentage 6 for 6, 100%. 21 points came from kicker Jose Maltos in this game. Absolutely smacked it right in their face. On the other side for the Redblacks, the reason why they couldn't come back, because you have Matthew Schultz. You might as well call him the Schlitz man, the man who used to pound the Schlitz in the background, because he was 22 of 32 on the day for 205 passing yards, a touchdown, and not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions. Man, you can't win a game that way. You know it, and I know it. He had 3 carries on the day for 6 yards, but come on. That's not going to erase 3 interceptions. You have an interception, and you have an interception, and you have an interception is basically what he did in this game. The Schlitz man, pounding back the Schlitz. It's all he did. The Redblacks offense as well, when you look at their running game, was absolutely dumpster pelican worthy. You had 15 carries on the day for 40 yards. 15 carries for 40 yards, and you can't get the ball into the mother, father, and end zone. People out there in the chat, let me know what you think. And I'll go ahead and bring your comment up here on the screen as we are live. Geno Lewis, though, for the Redblacks, did have 5 receptions for 56 yards on the day. Braylon Addison, 6 receptions, 52 yards, and a receiving touchdown. The one touchdown by the Schlitz man. The Redblacks defense, though, 1 sack and 1 interception on the day, looking absolutely terrible in this game. Can we get a Charles Barkley up in here for a That's Terrible up in this moment?
Stop it. Get some help.
I guess that's close enough.
That's terrible.
There it is, right there. To those of you who are just now tuning in on X, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, or whatever the father we put this on later after the live broadcast, welcome.
What's that?
Yes, the Schlitz man was throwing multiple interceptions in this game. This game was absolutely horrible to watch by halftime, as the Alouettes were up 19-3 by the half, and the Redblacks never recovered as they lost the game 39-18 by the end. Davis Alexander, probably one of the leading, people that helped turn this thing into what it was, but you can't take away the credit from Jose Maltos because you take those 21 points away in this game isn't the same because it's tied. It would be tied at 18 if the kicker never made a field goal in this game. Those 21 points are the reason why I have to do this for Jose Maltos.
Acknowledge me.
I acknowledge the fact that you were the difference maker, sir, and I give you all the credit in the mother-fathering world. Now it's time to move on to game number 2 for week 2, as we got to talk about the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts. These two teams smacking each other around in this game. One of the closer games that we had of week 2. We did have a closer one that we do have nominated for game of the week that we'll talk about more here in a few. But for this game right here, the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts, an absolute great game to watch, in my opinion, from start to finish. You know, besides the game that we have for game of the week, there's not many other things you can say to keep this out of the conversation for game of the week, except for that other game was just a smidge better. Literally a smidge better. Speaking of smidges, let's talk more about how we got to this point, as the Stampeders didn't even have this quarterback at the start of this year. Well, they did, not at the end of last year, because he was with the BC Lions and sitting on the bench. But he's actually showing up for the Stampeders and leading them to now still a perfect record on the year, as this team is now absolutely still smacking it around. The Stampeders, 29-19. They have a 2-0 record, perfect, as the Argonauts, who are 0-2, led by Nick Arbuckle, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. Vernon Adams Jr. was the quarterback that I was just rambling on about, who was with the BC Lions before. He comes into this game hot from the first one, leading to them to their first victory on the year the week prior. He comes into this one throughout with the steady hand. 17-25 on the day for 301 passing yards. Didn't have any passing touchdowns, didn't have any interceptions, didn't need to have any passing touchdowns because he got it done on the ground as well. 7 carries for 54 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Absolutely laying the smack it down in this game as a leader. And that's what they've needed. The Stampeders couldn't win games last year because they didn't have a proven leader. Now you do with Vernon Adams Jr. No joke, no bullshit. He's coming out there to sling the rock, and he's going to throw 300-plus passing yards each and every week for you. He has got a loaded cannon in an arm and is ready to prove the naysayers wrong that Nathan Rourke was better than him in BC and they picked the wrong person. That's what he wants to prove in his tenure with the Stampeders, and I believe he's going to fulfill that dream that he currently has. Dedrick Mills, the running game specialist for the Stampeders, wasn't a specialist on this day. Yes, he had 13 carries. Yes, he had a rushing touchdown. But what did he get out of those 13 carries? 28 rushing yards, averaging a little over 2 yards per carry. You're not going to be able to get anywhere with that. Yes, 13 times 2 is 26. I know my math out here. With that, 2.1 yards per rush? That's absolutely terrible. You have got to pick that up, Dedrick Mills. There's no way this team's going to stay undefeated, let alone be a team that can make a playoff push this season through 21 weeks in a regular season, by the way, with rushing statistics like that. You have got to pick that up. Jalen Philpott, receiver for the Stampeders, 6 receptions on the day for 117 receiving yards. Looking at that in comparison to what his cohort did, Dominique Grimes, 4 receptions for 98 yards. These two were a great receiving tandem that helped out Vernon Adams Jr. get over the hump, setting up other plays and mainly setting up their special teams, because special teams, again, was a driving force in this game for the winning team. The defense, though, actually had a bigger hand in this game than the previous one we talked about, because they had 2 sacks and 2 interceptions on this day. Rene Paredes was the field goal kicker that I was talking about, as he was 3 of 3 on the day, perfect on field goals for a total of 11 points. Nick Arbuckle on the other side for the Argonauts, 31 of 42 on the day. I repeat that, 31 of 42, had 42 opportunities at throwing the ball, completed 31 of them, 309 passing yards. Yes, that is better than what you saw out of Vernon Adams Jr. as far as production in yards, but he had only 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions, 1 carry for 3 rushing yards. That right there is not going to cut it when you have more interceptions than touchdowns. And when you do actually run the ball, it's only for 3 yards. You might as well have just stayed in the pocket and taken the sack at that point, brother. I know I'm out here promoting negative yards over positive, but come on. 1 carry for 3 yards. It's kind of like your rushing attack on the other side averaging 2 yards per carry. Not going to cut it in an overall contest. Mayan Williams, the running back for the Argonauts, did double duty as he was a runner and a receiver on the day, 9 carries for 62 yards, and even added 9 receptions for 65 yards. When your running back is involved in 18 plays in the game and only half of them are running, you've got him involved heavily in your game plan, and it looks like something that we're going to see out of the Argonauts now throughout the remainder of this season. They've just got to step it up overall at quarterback because Nick Arbuckle has been really, really inconsistent in these past 2 weeks, which is why he is 0-2 through weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season. DeMonte Coxey had 6 receptions for 98 receiving yards and a touchdown on the day, as well as David Ungerer had 5 receptions for 55 yards. This game going into halftime was a little dismal, as we had a team that was leading 9-4 at halftime. Yes, 9-4 at halftime. The rules are a little bit different in CFL. For those of you who don't know, there's 3 downs in a set of downs instead of 4. And yes, you can score 1 point at a time. So do your research, check it on out. You can see what I'm talking about. But right here, after halftime, it was all the Stampeders because they took that 5-point lead and doubled it to 10 by the end of the game. The Argonauts tried their best throughout the second half, scoring in both the third and the fourth quarter with a total of 15 points, but they just couldn't make it happen. The Argonauts lose this week 2 contest to the Stampeders based on the fact that they had an inconsistent quarterback who couldn't, make plays throughout those sets of downs. When you have 3 downs to a first down, it is very important that you take this and you make the best of the opportunity. And that was not done by Nick Arbuckle in week 2. It was done by Vernon Adams Jr., who didn't have the stellar numbers as far as a quarterback slinging for several touchdown passes like you would have in the UFL with Jordan Ta'amu in that championship game last Saturday, because it was Saturday night. But what you do have is somebody in Vernon Adams Jr. who has a lot of experience, championship pedigree, who can come in here and lead the Stampeders to victory in 2025. I got a good feeling about this Stampeders team going throughout the rest of the season. And now we have to take it into our next game for week 2. And it happens to be our game of the week between the Saskatchewan Roughriders, my Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Looking at this game right here, yes, there's multiple factors in this game that can take this and change it from a potential game of the week. And yes, there are factors from the previous game that we just talked about that can make that even more realistic as the game of the week. But this could be, I guess, a homer pick for me because I am a fan of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I wanted to give them their flowers. This is just me talking today, so I wanted to give them their flowers and their credit where it was due. The Saskatchewan Roughriders win this game 28-23, and they do it on the back of Trevor Harris. He wasn't perfect. He was 26 of 37 on the day for completions out of attempts for 295 passing yards, and he had a 1 passing touchdown and 1 interception. But A.J. Ouellette, 13 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown, definitely made this game what it was as far as a lead of 5 points. Because if it wasn't for somebody screwing things up to keep it closer, this game would have been far, far more out of hand. Kadeem Carey finally gets some action as a Saskatchewan Roughrider in this game. 4 carries for 26 yards on the ground, as well as Keyshawn Johnson having that one lone touchdown hauled in from Trevor Harris on 8 receptions for 124 receiving yards on the day. Dell Duncan Busby had 5 receptions for 59 yards on the day as well. And the Roughriders defense had 2 sacks with an interception, which definitely helped keep things afloat. Now, their kicker, all right? Their kicker was absolutely terrible on this day, because if it wasn't for his dumpster Pelican play in this game, this wouldn't have been a 5-point contest. He was 2 of 5 on the day, 2 completions out of 5 attempts on field goals for only 7 points. I repeat that. He had 3 missed field goals. That's a total of 9 points you could have converted on. And instead of having a 5-point victory, you would have won by 14 points. He was definitely the worst player for the Roughriders on this day, and the reason why they only won by 5. And I put this in the game of the week because the Hamilton Tiger Cats did not stray away from the fight. Bo Levi Mitchell threw for 40 passing attempts, only completing 26 of them, but he had 40 passing attempts on the day, and for that, I had to give them the nod as making this closer to what it could be for an actual game of the week, and why it definitely qualified as such for today's episode. So that's why it is the game of the week. But on those 26 of 40 passing attempts and completions, 336 passing yards, he had a touchdown and an interception. Greg Bell added 5 carries for 46 yards on the day as well, along with Ante Milanovic Litre. Man, Ryan's going to butcher me next week for that if he's able to make it. 4 carries for 5 yards on the ground and a touchdown, along with Kenny Lawler, who had 8 receptions for 162 receiving yards. No touchdowns, but Tim White did haul in the 1 touchdown on 3 receptions for 22 yards on the day. The Tiger Cats defense had 1 sack and an interception, but it was not enough to keep them afloat in this game, as the missed field goals by the other team is what helped keep the Tiger Cats in this. And for that, I have to give the nod to the Tiger Cats for actually staying tough and being part of this actual contest through and through, because, you know, it's easy when you're not clicking on all cylinders to give up. It's easy when things are tough to just give up or give political reasons why you can't do something, but yet you're very active in other areas. That's what I would have to say for this situation right here. For Bo Levi Mitchell, he was a part of something that the other team kept missing and dropping the ball. And when you have, whether it's one person or a collective group of people who don't do what they say and aren't consistent with what they do and don't show up each and every week ready to rock and roll, you're going to have some cracks in there. If there's no communication, no consistency, and no actual try towards something. That's what happened right here with the Tiger Cats, who couldn't capitalize on the mistakes from the other team. And that's why the Tiger Cats lost this game right here. Now, with that being said, we do have one more game we got to recap here in the opening drive. And for that, let's take it to the game that we had last night, the first game of week 3, because we've been recapping the Thursday games in these episodes on Friday because they happened the night before. So we've already recapped last week's Thursday game when Ryan was here as part of the show last week. And for that, we're going to actually recap now the Thursday game from last night. So Montreal will be featured in this episode twice, as yes, we did talk about them earlier, and they had won over the Redblacks. And now we're talking about them again, as they now have won over the Edmonton Elks. And this Edmonton Elks team continues to struggle since switching from the Eskimos. They were formerly known as the Edmonton Eskimos. They are now known as the Edmonton Elks and continue to struggle in this league, because when you look at this for what it is, they started the game out very slow, only scoring 6 points before halftime. And the other team, the Alouettes, had already scored 24 points going into halftime. This was absolute tough to watch. If you're a fan of CFL, if you're a fan of the Elks, even the Alouettes, Ryan McCarthy might even tell you that, or he might come here next week and tell you he absolutely loved it because the Alouettes were absolutely laying the smackdown on the Elkimos, a team that he is a fan of in the Alouettes and a team that he is not a fan of in the Elkimos. That's what we saw last night. Davis Alexander turned things around from the previous week, as he was a little spotty, and we talked about that earlier in the show. But for this, 20 of 24, only 4 incompletions on the day for 254 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Absolutely crushed it, Davis Alexander did in this game. He had 1 carry for 11 yards as well. The running game was strong too, with Sean Thomas Erlington adding 11 carries for 63 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown on the day. David Dallaire had 1 reception for 6 yards, but made the best of it as he scored a receiving touchdown in that scenario. Tyson Philpott added 8 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. Absolutely was crushing it. The relative of Jalen, who plays for the Stampeders, did a great job in his position, as he did have a receiving touchdown in this game. Again, 8 receptions, 96 receiving yards. Tyler Snead added 4 receptions for 64 receiving yards as well in this game. And you look at what he did here, it's big numbers. 4 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Absolutely big for what he did for this Alouettes team. You cannot take that away from him. Big game by both of those receivers in this game. Alouettes defense, 5 sacks on the day. 5 sacks with a fumble recovery and an interception by Kabion Ento. Ento coming up huge with that in the second half and doing what he did, in this game to keep this team afloat from the start to finish. This team never trailed in this game. And when you have production like this from all 3 phases, offense, defense, and with special teams, with Jose Maltos adding a perfect set of circumstances again, not 1, not 2, but 3 completed field goals out of 3 attempts, 4 of them extra points, and altogether had 13 points converted for this team in this game. Big reason why they won, again, based on their kicker, is they only won by 10 points for this contest. Trey Ford for the Edmonton Elks, 27 of 36 on the day for 308 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns and an interception, as well as 3 carries on the day for 31 yards. But one of those carries was for a rushing touchdown. So altogether, Trey Ford, 3 touchdowns and an interception combined, did his job in this game and made sure that he could keep this team close. But unfortunately, it just didn't make a difference in the end, as the Alouettes had their number. Justin Rankin, 12 carries for 76 yards on the day for the Elks, as well as Javon Leake, who had 6 carries for 41 yards, did their best to establish the run game, but the Alouettes had their number, like I said, from start to finish. There was no way they were going to come back from that deficit of 24-6 at halftime. When you look at the caliber between the Alouettes and the Elks and what they've been doing for the past few seasons, the Elks have been on the bottom for quite some time. The Alouettes have been a team on the rise for quite some time, and they're ready to make some noise here in 2025. Curly Giddens Jr., 5 receptions for 95 yards on the day and a receiving touchdown, as well as Keon Julian Grant, 2 receptions for 48 yards and a receiving touchdown. Both receivers having a receiving touchdown in this game, absolutely huge. The Elks defense had 1 sack, and again, that's atrocious in comparison to the amount of tackles that they had combined. 1 sack. No fumble recoveries, no interceptions, didn't force any of that against the other team. And they did have a decent outing on special teams, as Vincent Blanchard was 2 of 2 on the day for field goals, 2 of those being 2 extra points added with that as well, and 8 total points. Still wasn't enough to get this team over the hump, as they struggled from start to finish. It's a struggle when you don't have an entire team carrying their weight. I mean, think about that. When you show up there as a unit, whether you're a team of 53 or a team of 2, if you don't have somebody or someone's or a group showing up, they consistently aren't there. And even if they are physically there, they're not there here, okay? And just going through the motions. If you have somebody that's just literally fumble effing around with no care in the world and spreading themselves way too thin, the cracks are going to start to show. You're going to start to slip, and it's not going to work out here if you continue to go about things half-assedly. And that's how things go over there in Edmonton, and they're going to continue to go this way until they do the right thing. You've got to prepare. You've got to study. You got to work together as a team. You got to communicate. Communication is key. And if you can't communicate, everything's going to hit the fan, because your head is so far up your rectum, you can't see the light of day. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take this into our next commercial break, as we have now finally completed the opening drive. For those of you who've been sticking around and staying loyal from the start to the beginning and not just flopping in and out, thank you very much for being a true supporter of the program. We're going to take this to our next commercial break, and we'll see you when we come back and start discussing the other topics we have here on the slate.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony, or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you, you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason.
Where are my dogs? Grand Champ of the Week time is now. It is now time to discuss my pick for the Grand Champ of the Week. And for my pick of Grand Champ of the Week, I'm going to go to the UFL and discuss somebody who is deserving of not just this award, but the UFL MVP award that he got snubbed for. I'm going with Jordan Ta'amu, who made up for that by getting the UFL Championship Game MVP. 21 of 28 on the day for completions out of attempts, 390 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, no turnovers, 156.3 QBR. And for those of you who don't know, that's literally a perfect QBR rating for the day. 8 rushes for 28 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Jordan Ta'amu, my choice for Grand Champ of the Week. That right there was my choice for the Grand Champ of the Week. With that being said, we got to take this into our next segment, which is the Gridiron Scoop, where we got more things to discuss. We got some discussions along the lines of football. Just kidding. Within the NFL, the UFL, and no CFL. We'll talk more about that in the 2-minute drill, but NFL and UFL action coming your way. But before we do that, we do have one person who recently just commented. Ike is in the house saying, "What's up, D. Willie?" Well, what's up to you there, Ike? I will give you this.
What's that? What's that?
Shout out to Ike for being here in the comment.
What?
Ike for being here in the comment.
What?
Giving Ike his flowers. I don't think you were here last week, so I'm giving you your flowers now. Let's go ahead and start this one out with our first topic here in the Gridiron Scoop. See what we got here next to discuss. UFL Championship audience drops sharply from 2024 ratings. Do you believe that this is a sign that the league should halt the plans to expand to 4 additional teams? This question basically comes from, this past weekend, you have the UFL Championship, right? From the 2024 UFL Championship in comparison to the 2025, the ratings dropped significantly. As in 2024, you had 1.57 million viewers. Keep that in mind. 1.57 million viewers in 2024. In 2025, that dropped below a million. It dropped to 983,000 viewers for the 2025 championship. That's a 37% decrease in viewership from 2024 to 2025. That's a big drop. So with that being said, my question, do I believe that this is a sign that the league should halt plans to expand to 4 additional teams? I'm going to say no. And the reason why I say no that they shouldn't halt the plans is maybe the expansion to 4 additional teams, depending on where they put them, would help out the viewership. You take one of those teams in Texas and you move it to New Jersey, bring the Generals back. I know you're going to have a happy Ryan McCarthy for one. He might start watching UFL. You got, a team that you had in Florida before that you could bring back. It might make my man Kyle Nash happy and some others in the area to where they would start covering the UFL again and start showing up here to discuss it with me. But when you take the teams away from the areas in which you got bigger fans in, and these are just 2 people I'm talking about. There's groups of people that were coming to these games. Yes, the audience might have been significant low as far as the amount might have been significantly lower than what you would have for DC or St. Louis, but you can't really compare the audience in St. Louis to what you would have in New Jersey or what you would have in Florida or which, it would be the Orlando team because they had a team in Orlando when they were in the XFL. So looking at that for what it is, you need 4 more teams in this league to make it to 12. I say you bring one in New Jersey, you bring one in Florida, You bring the Philadelphia Soul back. There's 3 right there. And as long as you don't put a 4th team in Texas, I'm cool. Okay. I'm cool. Maybe another one in Ohio, like Canton area, because the NFL Hall of Fame, Canton, Ohio. You bring a team to Canton, call them the Canton Bulldogs. I know they had an old professional team back in the day in the original NFL called the Canton Bulldogs, but how great would it be to pay homage to that era of football by having a team called, at least in Canton, being brought back and having a team in Ohio representing professional football yet again and in Canton. I think that would be cool. So I say, even though the viewership dropped significantly for the UFL championship from 1.57, like I said, from the previous year in 2024 to 983,000, a 37% decrease in viewership. Yes, but you got to look at the markets and where they're at. You got the Michigan Panthers and the DC Defenders, okay? 2 teams that were knocked out before the Super Bowl in the NFL, and 2 areas that aren't really that excited about football right now because it's baseball season. It's baseball season in Detroit, which Detroit is still a number 1 for Major League Baseball as far as record as of right now. You got DC, which DC baseball is absolutely dumpster pelican worthy. They're not excited about that. More people in that area are probably excited about soccer or the upcoming Commander season, or hell, even NASCAR. They're not as excited about professional football, and they didn't even seem as excited about it until we got to the playoffs, until we got to the first week and then the championship week. Watching the games, the beer snake wasn't even as active as it was in years prior. So with all that being said, I think that adding 4 additional teams wouldn't be the worst thing that the UFL could do. It gives you 4 more markets to appeal to, which can help you out with the TV deals, even though you're not hurting for that because Fox and ESPN, with the sponsorship of the U.S. Army, is backing you up very well right now. It could go south within the next 2 years, in my opinion, if you don't do something to bring some more appeal to the league, okay? And what's going on right now with these 8 teams isn't appealing enough. We talk about the CFL having 9 teams, 21 weeks, several different buys throughout. It's got some fun in there because it's different rules. It's 3 downs instead of 4 per set of downs. There's other things that you can finagle within the game of Canadian football. But for UFL, where you took 2 leagues that were failing, the XFL, the USFL, and you merged them. You put 2 failing leagues together, all right? Because they're playing around the same time. You merge them together. And over 2 years now of combined league, you went from 1.5 million viewers in the previous championship to a 37% decrease. You got to do something big. And I don't think leaving it at 8 in the current format is going to make that change. It's going to make that improve at all. You're going to see more than just a 37% decrease if you leave it the way it is. I think they go hard at figuring out these 4 teams to expand the league to 12 with. And I think those 4 teams that need to be brought back: Philadelphia Soul, New Jersey Generals, an Orlando team, and Canton. Go to Ohio. Bring a team to Canton, Ohio. Professional football royalty in Canton, Ohio. That is my suggestion for this and how I answer this question. The next question that we have: former Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander signs a 1-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. Does this signing bring the franchise closer to finally breaking through to the Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson?
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
Was that a total
surprise, motherfucker?
Yeah, I had to get it on the camera. You know I got the remote right here. I got the remote. I can just do this. All right. Was that a total
surprise, motherfucker?
I don't think so. I don't think so. As we zoom out right here, we can zoom in. We can zoom out. We can zoom in. We can zoom out. We can zoom in. We can zoom out. And right here, I tell you, it doesn't make a mother-fathering difference because team without Jaire Alexander, whether they were meant to make the Super Bowl or not, was going to happen anyway. He was cut by the Packers for a reason, because he wasn't pulling his weight. He wasn't pulling things through and through, and he needed to, because the Packers were a team that was literally on fire last year, and they had something to prove with their second year of Jordan Love at the helm at quarterback. Now you go to a team that's a little more balanced than the Packers as far as your run game and your defense, but your quarterback play, when the moments get to the toughest moments possible, when you really need Lamar Jackson laser focused, he makes a mistake. I mean, we all make mistakes, right? We're humans. We all make mistakes out here in these streets. It's possible that, those who've trained for 10, 15, 20 years have the opportunity past college to get to professional football. You might blank in that moment too. I know I would. That's why I am not a professional football player. So we can't really sit here and compare apples to oranges. What we can tell you is what we've seen on tape. Lamar Jackson, multiple-time MVP of the league, great for the regular season, but he's starting to get that hype, like Peyton Manning type hype before Peyton won that first Super Bowl, where he's absolutely great during the regular season. But when it gets to playoff time, especially when it comes to conference championship time, he finds ways to choke. And that's what we have seen from the Ravens for a decent amount of time now when it comes to that quarterback position since they won that last Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. When the moments get tough, and especially under the Lamar Jackson era, tough gets going. It's not the motto here. The toughness does not get going. He folds at points throughout the situation. You know it, and I know it. You had King Henry last year, who, if it wasn't for what Saquon Barkley did in Philly, would have been the top rusher of the entire NFL and deserved it because of where he came back from in a scenario with Tennessee. People were writing him off, didn't want to sign him. He wanted to go to Dallas because that's his favorite team as a kid. They didn't even want him for the price tag. Baltimore took the opportunity to bring him in, and it paid dividends. But when it came down to the opportunity of Jackson to Mark Andrews, and Andrews dropped that ball, yes, I put the pressure on Lamar Jackson, and yes, I could deservingly put more on Mark Andrews, but this just goes along with the motto of Lamar can't get it done in the moments that matter the most, even if it was somebody else that dropped the ball. So, whether or not this situation gets to where it is again in the conference championship, I don't think it's going to be Jaire Alexander who's a difference maker that makes them get over the hump to the Super Bowl. It has got to be Lamar Jackson on the right page with his receivers, with his tight end. Andrews can't drop the ball. I don't think Jaire Alexander's signing is going to be the difference maker for them getting past the conference championship and finally making it to a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. We need to see overall consistency from all phases, all three phases of this team. And we need to see consistency from Lamar Jackson, especially because since he has taken over at quarterback, he's got multiple MVPs, but no Super Bowl appearances, at least. And it's time that under his tenure as the quarterback, that they make it to the Super Bowl. Now, it's time for the final topic here within the Gridiron Scoop. And we've got to talk about NFL rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders failed to appear in court after a speeding ticket this past Tuesday. And this is after he received a second speeding ticket. Could this display of reckless behavior cost him his NFL dream? That's a tough one. That is a really tough one because, I don't think it's going to cost him his NFL dream. I do think that, certain parts of his behavior leading up to the NFL draft, and we've talked about on this show throughout multiple episodes, I think that behavior right there is the reason why he slipped in the draft. But when we talk about this reckless driving behavior that he's had in Ohio for 2 tickets that he's got now, not showing up to court, I don't think it's going to affect his NFL dream because of the fact of it's just speeding. It's not like, anybody got hurt in the process. I think they'll make an example out of him with some type of punishment. Yes, whether it's a fine. I don't think he's going to be suspended because he's not that much of an important difference maker to the team that's really going to make that much of a difference. Okay. But, they when you look at what's happened before, teams have cut players for less than speeding tickets, right? Could it cost him his opportunity with the Browns? Yes. But I don't think it's going to cost him his NFL dream, because who's to say this isn't some type of ploy for him to try to find a way to get cut by the Browns without verbally saying it. And then another team out there might have said, behind closed doors to Coach Prime that they regret not taking him. That could be a team like the New Orleans Saints. That could be, a team like the Raiders, a team like the Titans. Who's to say that this team or a number of teams out there haven't contacted Prime off the books and said, hey, here's an easy way for him to get out of here? Because you've got multiple speeding tickets now that you've had in this past month, in the past couple of weeks. You failed to show up to the first one, and this is right around the time that you're getting the second one. This right here, it wasn't the type of behavior he displayed in college, okay? And if he did, the cops were just letting him off maybe because he was Coach Prime's kid and he was the star player or one of the star players on the Colorado Buffaloes team. It's possible that he got some preferential treatment. I don't think so, though. I don't think that's the case necessarily. I think this is more so a ploy to, without verbally saying so, he wants out of Cleveland, because you have Flacco, you have Pickett, you also have, Gabriel. You have Mr. Gabriel in there. So when you have these 3 different quarterbacks ahead of you, and you're looking at number 4 on the depth chart right now, and there's no guarantee they're going to get rid of one of those veterans, even though it should be Pickett. With that being said, I think that he's quietly trying to find an exit strategy. And even though it's not the best one, this could potentially be it. I started this off by saying I don't think his NFL dream would be over, but I think it's possible that his NFL career in Cleveland could end before the first snap of the regular season with behavior like this. Shedeur Sanders, 2 reckless driving tickets in a short period of time. Failure to show up to the first court date for the first ticket. I don't think this is going to cost him his NFL dream, but I think this reckless behavior could cost him an opportunity in Cleveland, and he could be released before you know it and picked up by another team. And could it be another team in the NFL? Possibly. Could it be a team in the CFL for him to get some more professional tape together, or at least, above the level of college football tape together to impress other NFL teams? Who knows? But right here and right now, it doesn't look good for Shedeur with 2 reckless driving tickets in a short period of time, not showing up to court for the first one. I don't think it'll cost him his NFL dream, but it might cost him the starting opportunity in Cleveland. It might get him cut, and he might have to go fishing for another team out here in these streets. With that being said, it's now time to take it to my favorite part of the week. And you know what that is. Oh, yeah. It's time for the snowflake of the week. To those of you who are real out here in the chat, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for the kind words as we got Vikala out here, and I'll address him here shortly. Shout out to Vikala, who only watches on Comey Media and only watches this show on there. Doesn't say anything on Sartoba, but we'll see if he changes here soon, because it's time, speaking of snowflakes, to talk about the snowflake of the week, and that is our kicker right here, Brett Lowther, who's 2 of 5 in this past week's game, this week 2 game, 2 of 5 on field goals for 7 combined points. He had one job and failed miserably. Brett Lowther, you are the reason why your team almost took the... And that would have been... Luckily, you were playing the Hamilton Tiger Kitties and the team that was bad enough to not lose or to not give up the win from this team that you played for, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Brett Lowther, 2 of 5 of field goals, 7 points. My pick for the Week 2 Snowflake of the Week. With that being said, it's now time for our last commercial break of the program before we get to our 2-minute drill, our post-game show, and wrap it on up with a bow before we get on out of here. To those of you who are real out here in the chat, show up each and every week and support both brands, not just one, and watch multiple things on the brands and not just one thing, and comment throughout that are true. Thank you for showing up each and every week. Thank you for being true and being loyal. And thank you for when I reach out to you, responding back in a respectable fashion. And that's what I get for going off the rails slightly by clicking the wrong transition. It's now time to click the right one. As we come back from the commercial break, we got plenty more in store. Thank you as always for tuning in.
Later, the post game. But coming up next, the 2-minute drill. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the evening.
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. If you want your commanders to be rep right, well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 a.m. Central. On the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers, right side, commanders. Where my soldiers, left side,
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. I am your host, Drew Willingham. We are back for episode 89, brought to you by Comey Media and Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Yes, Total Football Talk, episode 89. We are streaming live right now, as we got much more to discuss here on this program. Not as much as we discussed previously leading up to this point, but we do have a few more things to go over before we wrap this on up with a bow and get on out of here. And the first thing that I want to start it off with is a few comments. As earlier, Ike was here and said, "What's up, D. Willie?" And after that, Vicola came into the house. Good old Vicola. I appreciate you coming in and bowing and making an appearance here today, brother, and showing up. It means a lot. I appreciate it. As well as Sick Diggy saying, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, all the way from Norway. And yes, I was giving Vicola a little bit of smack there for a second. He's saying that he's not getting the notifications on Sartoba Media. Comey Media is the only one that is sending notifications. Well, it's because you have the notification bell turned on for Comey Media. You don't have the notification bell turned on for Sartoba Media. So again, the reason why you're not getting notifications is because you don't have the notification bell turned on, and you need to turn it on if you would like to have it on, and if you'd like to stay up to date with what's going on out here in these streams. And for the real ones out there, we appreciate you who come in. Tune in, yes, turn on the notification bell, and you will see what's up. Just like Sick does when Sick shows up every single week, because Sick is a loyal one. Shout out to Sick all the way again from Norway. And Sick says, I know I'm late, but I'm over here now, and I'm over here now. Hey, man, better late than never. I'm not going to give you a hard time for not coming in, but I'm going to give you a hard time for not showing up consistently. And it's like, if you come in here with an excuse, right? Come in here with an excuse, Vicola, I am going to throw you under the bus with this one because this one was a shit-tastic excuse, okay? And I'm going to say this because I'm just feeling it today. If you come in here and you say that you're not getting notifications for one spot, but you're on the other, it's because you have the notification bell turned on one spot and not another. If you want to stick around and if you want to be informed of what's happening, especially when we have great shows each and every week. We got my man Corey, man, each and every Saturday with The Grind. You love wrestling. And so do I, so does Sick. A lot of people do. And one place I definitely get my news at each and every week, and I'm not being a homer by saying this, is The Grind on Sartoba Media, okay? Yes, that might have been a shameless plug, but it's legitimate because I watch it each and every week because my man is absolutely crushing it. So yes, if you want to be informed, turn on the notification bell for the channel, and if you need help with it, let me know. Reach out. You got my contact information. I don't mind helping you out here in these streams. But I can't sit back and let an excuse cover it up. That's like me, a big person standing in the front of the mirror saying, I don't eat that much. It's a lie. Can't do it. Got something to work on, and that is one of them, eating less. That is me. Now, when it comes to that, my man, Corey, man, speaking of him, is here. Saying what's up. Fist in the air, ready to rock and roll. Sick Diggy. Even acknowledging my man. And even my man acknowledging him out here in the streams. Everybody rocking and rolling out here as we are here for Total Football Talk, episode 89. Ready to rock and roll solo today. Solo for reasons we may discuss here towards the end of the show. Now, with that being said, we got to take it on into the 2-minute drill and discuss what we have to preview for this week in the action of CFL football. And we're going to go pretty much from the 2-minute drill to this. I kind of went around in circles on that one, did it on purpose, because we have a transition we got to look at. That one is this. CFL Week 3 action. Now, last night was the Montreal Alouettes and Edmonton Elks game, and we already did recap that because it has already transpired. But that was the first game for Week 3, and we're going to recap the other three. Preview the other three, starting with the game for tonight between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Toronto Argonauts, aka the Argos. Argos here are 0-2 coming into this Week 3 contest. And I don't really have much hope for them in this game. I think the Argos, the home team, fall to 0-3. I think my Saskatchewan Roughriders will absolutely decimate the Argos in this game, and it's not even going to be close. The Roughriders will smack them around like the dumpster Pelicans they are and win this game by 10-plus points. My pick, Saskatchewan Roughriders win this game over the Toronto Argonauts.
Who's giving them the business?
For our next game, we have 2 on Saturday. These 2 Saturday games, one at 4 and the other at 7 p.m. The first one between the Ottawa Redblacks and the home team of the Calgary Stampeders. These 2 teams have already faced one another, and the Calgary Stampeders had their number, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the Stampeders, who, like the Roughriders, are undefeated through the first 2 weeks of the season, are going to come out here ready and locked and loaded to smack around the Redblacks. Yes, they are red, but they're going to be treated like redheaded stepchilds in this game as the away team. That's my pick for this one. The Calgary Stampeders get the win at home, and this will be the first time this week in week 3 that the home team has won the game, as the Alouettes and the Roughriders will have away wins leading up to this first Saturday game. My choice, the Redblacks fall to the Stampeders on Saturday at 4 p.m. by a score of at least 12 points of a deficit. And that's my choice for the first Saturday game.
Who's giving them the business?
For our last game of week 3 and our second on Saturday, is the 7 p.m. contest between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions. This one's a little tough because we've only seen the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in one game so far because they did have the bye in week 1, right? The BC Lions, who are coming into the season, after switching up from Vernon Adams Jr. to Nathan Rourke, are now 1-1 on the season. They look terrible. Not as bad as the other teams like the Toronto Argonauts and the Edmonton Elks, who look like this group of dumpster Pelicans. Let's bring these motherfathers up on the screen. They look like this. The biggest beak one on the right. That's the one that I would say the BC Lions have looked like, even though they have a win. They have a win, yes. But they've looked like the fortitude of dumpster Pelicans who can't get their life together, standing on top of that Food Lion bag over to the left on his webby, toey. This dumpster Pelican right here, my choice. Let's say, let's reel it back in. The Edmonton Elkamos, the Toronto Argonauts, they're the first 2 on the right. That's your top tier dumpster Pelican. Then the one standing right behind them, the one directly behind number 1, not number 2, but number 1. That right there is the BC Lions, the 1-1 BC Lions. That right there is the 3rd-ranked dumpster Pelican of the league, in a league of 9 where you can have potentially the Hamilton Tiger Kitties as a number 3 ranked dumpster Pelican. They're just not that bad when you think about the fact that you've got a BC Lions team that could have had Vernon Adams Jr., VA2, the 2nd, Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady the 2nd. No, Vernon Adams the 2nd. Even though if Cole was here, he'd say, Junior. I'm going to say non-pedally the 2nd, and I'm going to keep it that way. Because right here and now, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the away team, are going to come into British Columbia, and they're going to put up a good fight. But they're facing the 3rd-ranked dumpster Pelican of the league. And for that, I'm going to give the nod to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here, a team that I didn't give enough respect last year. And for that, I do regret that. I do regret not giving them the flowers that were due. And for that, I'm going to give it to them now. I'm going to say that this team, known as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, are going to get the win on the road this Saturday at 7 p.m. when on the outside looking in for this week 3, we have a bye for the Hamilton Tiger Kitties. Good, because the past 2 weeks have been downright atrocious It's time to give them a break. They don't deserve it. They just need it, okay? And we need it. We need it more than they do because we don't want to watch them stink it on up out there on the field. So, my choices this week for these 3 remaining games for week 3, the Roughriders on Friday night for the win, the Stampeders for Saturday afternoon for the win, and the BC Lions losing to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for the win for the Blue Bombers. That's my 3 choices for the 2-minute drill as we take this on into the final segment known as the post game.
Who's giving them the business?
Right now.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
Episode 89. This is our thumbnail right here for the DC Defenders post record-setting stats in 2025 UFL Championship victory. That was our thumbnail. That was our main story for this one. And I'll talk more about that here in the post game as we have Sick Diggy flopping back and forth between channels out here. And we'll bring some more comments out here in a second. But when it comes to that situation right here, the UFL season is finally over. 10-week season, 2-week playoffs, 12 weeks, no buys. That's what happens out here for the UFL. Pretty quick season. Talked about earlier about, should they halt the plans to expand to 12 teams and add 4 additional teams to the mix of 8 for 2026. And again, I still think even though when you're trending downward, it's not always best to add more to it. I think it might actually save it because you have the opportunity to bring more eyes in different markets. When you have an 8-team league and 3 of those teams are in the same state of Texas, there's not much opportunity for growth in viewership because not everybody's interested in watching teams from Texas, okay? You bring more on the East Coast. You have Philadelphia. You have Canton, Ohio. You have New Jersey. You have Orlando. Those opportunities right there. I think that could be big for you if you do that out here in the UFL. I say that, hand over fist each and every week. And even though we're at the post game right now and an hour and 20 minutes in, yes, it seems like a little bit of a shorter episode. It's going to be that way when you have a show that's supposed to be ran by 2 people and one person's carrying the load. And I'm not sorry. I'm really doing my best to hold things back and be sympathetic with certain things. But I've already began making some changes outside over the last week or so. And I've been thinking about this for a while. There's been some things that are going to look different next week. Much different. And I'm not going to say what they are right yet because I want it to be a surprise. For those of you who are watching this live or watching this in the replay, I want you to see this and be compelled to watch next week's episode because it's going to be groundbreaking. There's going to be some announcements made. But it gets to a point, those of you who have watched each and every week, or whether it's live or it's syndicated, and syndicated meaning you're watching the replay, it gets to a point when things can only be one-sided, but for so much before you have to make some changes with what you got. And I've seen this before. Those who have worked with me before know I'm not really demanding, but I hold accountability when it comes to consistency, right? I'm very big on being consistent and preparing. And whether it's graphics or a slate or the stream ahead of time, I have things that are done a certain way. And when you do this for one project for 2 years of literally now 2 straight years and coming up on our 3rd NFL season for the program, there has to be consistency there for myself, for my partner, and whoever that may be from a week to week basis, or every week, or whatever the case may be, right? I think some of you out there who are watching this live right now can see what I'm dancing around, and I'm giving it literally a few more days. The situation has a few more days to pick up the phone and do the right thing. If not, you will see a difference next week, and if there's not much beyond between now and that day, you may only see this in one area beyond next week, as episode 90 is pretty impactful. It is to me. It's 10 episodes away from 100. A lot of work has been put into this project. Both Cole and myself have put a lot of work into it. I have done everything I can to keep this going every single week. And except for a 6-week hiatus after this past NFL season, after the Super Bowl, this show was on each and every week with me. And there was only 2 episodes out of the last 89 that I have not been here. I've been here for 87 episodes. One, I had no power in my house. And the other, I was so sick that I had to call in a favor to my buddy Kyle Nash, who came in and took over for that episode. And did so when I reached out to him at 5:00 in the morning and filled in. And the other one, I couldn't help it. I mean, I had no power, right? So, because we had a storm coming through. So, I mean, you can't do anything about that. So, consistency is big. Having the show on each and every week is big. And even if I have to carry the weight, it's going to continue on each and every week from here forward. So, that's one big announcement, as the show's not going anywhere. I've put in too much work for it to go anywhere. And I've got some things cooking up. So for Cole out there, I love you, man. Hopefully everything is improving and looking better. I'm not going to put your situation out there, but hopefully things are looking up. But I've got some announcements next week and some changes that I'm going to be making. And hopefully you guys are excited for that and will be supportive because when things aren't going the way they should, you've got to address the elephant in the room and do the right thing. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not somebody who, even though some might say it's impatient, there gets to a point in a scenario when you can only sit around and wait for so long. And I'm a patient guy. Look at my beard. Patient and not impatient guys can't grow beards. Impatient guys can't grow hair. Okay. I'm at a point where I'm going to do the right thing, and I have continued to do the right thing, and I will voice my opinion when it's needed, and I will not be shut down. So, based on the way the world is. So, for here now, there is that's going to be the most I'm going to say at this point, because we are live, and I'm going to give it some time, literally a few more days. That doesn't mean my work's going to stop. I'm still going to prepare as I have and continue to do what I believe in my heart is the right thing, because I have spent many, many hours, whether it's hours before I went to work, because this show used to be on Mondays at 11 a.m., from 11 a.m. to 2. Then for the next 30 to 45 minutes, eat, shower, get ready real quick, get in the car for 45 minutes, go to work for 10 to 12 hours, and then come back home in a 45-minute ride home, and then get up and do it all over again the next day for another 3 or 4 days before I actually had time off. Okay. We moved this show to Fridays. And thank you to those of you who are still watching the show after the bouncing around of days. But my co-hosts, obligations have changed, and so have mine over the course of the past 2 years, and we've had to move it around. For now, the show's staying on Fridays, and the time on Friday is not definitive yet, because the overall scope of the show is still right now unannounced. And to be honest, 1000% honest, it's undecided because you're sitting back and you're waiting on other things to fall into place before you can make moves. And I've been in this scenario before. And I've been in this scenario where things have changed dramatically because of my health and had to come back from that. I've been in situations where things have changed dramatically because of my peers and had to make changes of it. I've made changes, things based on having to go from one brand to another and creating my own situation and continuing to forge forward. Okay. I don't bullshit. I don't waste people's time. And I'm not going to waste any second that I think I'm not going to waste any second that I can. We've all made mistakes. We've all made a waste here or two and had accidents. It's happened, right? But I work too damn hard each and every week, whichever way you view it, no matter what it is that I'm doing, whether it's logical work or it's physical work or it's creation of things, that I prioritize my time to the best of my ability. I prioritize it and respect other people's time. And yes, we all have hiccups here. I remember last Sunday, I was, getting up with Corey for D Willie in the evening. And with that, I hit traffic on the way back, was a little late. But with that, communication was key. I communicated with my guy, with my guest host. Didn't leave him sitting there wondering what was going on. Okay. I don't do that to people that I work with, let alone care about. So read between the lines for what it is. I'm not going to say much more on that because the more I say, the more likely I am to say some things I'm not going to want to say. But I can at least assure you this. I have not said anything right now publicly on this show directly to anybody ever that I didn't mean. Could have been a different approach, yeah, but it came from here, which is I need a point here. It came from here, which is the most important thing. And I've got closer people in my life physically and some people on the internet that I get more respect out of for being a 1000% real person than some PD politician out there trying to tell things to a group. So address that for how it is, have some balls, and have the communications you need to have with people directly, and don't waste their time. That's my advice to people out here in these streams. And that goes to a variety of people. That's not just for one person. That's a variety of individuals, groups, individuals, people out there. The same things that I would say right here and right now, I would say a whole lot more direct. And it might actually come across in a better way if there was a phone conversation, a FaceTime about it, and not just through text. The biggest thing I will say before I get on out of here, as I know this is a long ramble in the post game, is when you have a qualm, a discrepancy, an issue with an individual or a group of individuals, the biggest thing that'll set me off, if you want to know more about me personally, is trying to talk about something serious in a text message, in an email, in a text. No, you don't have to do things in person. You don't have to necessarily do it on a face video, but a phone call, even though it's a whole lot easier for the snowflake side to be and hit the end button. It's a whole lot more respectful because you had the drive to go to the person and have the discussion themselves. Okay. Things are in motion right now to support what I've been saying, slowly but surely. There's been permission in other areas to literally do what I'm doing over the past 2 weeks to carry on. But conversation needs to be had with individuals. Conversation needs to be had with myself, not me to me, but and for direction of multiple things, not just this, but the whole scope of it all, because I got too much going on in real time and in real life to be spending it here with individuals or ungrateful people for the time that I put into it, right? You don't get things like this sitting down and just staring aimlessly at a screen and not doing anything to support what you're doing. Yes, I mean, yes, graphics is me moving upward. It's not that special. It's not Hollywood, but it sure as hell isn't little Johnny drawing a smiley face on a piece of paper, putting a magnet on it, and sticking it on the fridge with some crooked smile on the smiley face. This is real art right here. This took real time to put together. And this rant right here was brought to you by me, Drew Willingham, for what I believe is this.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
It kind of was that, and it kind of maybe have done this too. But regardless if it was this or not,
this has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
it had absolutely nothing to do with the Dallas Cowboys, which you know is not a total.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Many things to be figured out over the course of the next 6 days leading up to our next appearance for episode 90. But what I can tell you is this. There's going to be some changes with graphics, the way it's viewed. I'm not getting a haircut between now and then, so I can tell you it's not going to be that. But what I can tell you is keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. There's going to be some things in Instagram stories, Facebook stories, Snapchat stories, whatever the expletive. I know I've dropped a couple cuss words today. For that, I am sorry for dropping a couple cuss words today, but I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated. And if I continue to talk about that, I'm going to definitely throw out there exactly what I'm frustrated about, even though some guesses might be able to be ensued on certain things that I said already. And for that, yes, sick. You before I get on out of here, there's some things that you have said that have been absolutely big in this, and I need to address certain things that you have said. Sick says, and when one can't make the live stream, there's always the replay. Yes, so don't bullshit me, okay? Not you, Sick, but those out there. I can't tune in live. I can't bring comments. Don't bullshit me. Okay. I'm not caring anymore when it comes to holding back when it comes to bullshit. I'm going to tell you when it's out here in real time. There's certain areas, certain places out there where you can't say it. All right. But I can say it right here. This is my platform on Sotoba Media. And yes, it is co-share with Comey Media, but I'm the one driving the content for Comey Media right now too. So with that being said, I have a little bit of a big head with that. I'm going to say what I feel is necessary. It's going to be a rough night in Toronto. Yes, it will be. And it could get lively in both Alberta and British Columbia. It could, but I just don't think that BC has what it takes out there. How come the CFL has 3 franchises in Ontario? I can understand Toronto and Ottawa having teams, but why Hamilton? It's a good question because the Tiger Cats have absolutely not been a team worth really watching. And for that, I'm going to keep it as is. Could there be a future expansion franchise in Manitoba, preferably in Winnipeg? I mean, maybe, but you've already got the Blue Bombers, so why else would you need a second team in Winnipeg? It's kind of like having 2 teams in New York in the NFL. Yes, one's in the AFC and one's in the NFC, but I still don't think it's worthwhile, even if you put them in 2 different divisions. DC brought the fight to Michigan. They punched them in the mouth and pummeled them repeatedly. They absolutely did. You're absolutely right with that. Florida, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California are great markets, just having the right promotion and cuties that will host future UFL franchises. Yes, I agree with all of that except for California. Without going too political, I don't think California deserves anything brand new right now. based on their behavior with everything going on. Yes, you can go back and forth and spar back and forth between the political side of it in D.C. and California, and the fact that California is so far in debt, they're trying to find ways to get out of it. This isn't going to help. There's a whole lot of things that I can go about with that, but for that reason alone, I'm going to steer clear of that one right now. But just to say, I don't believe California deserves nuke anything right now. I think Seattle could be a great city for future UFL franchise, or perhaps Milwaukee. Seattle, I like the Seattle Kraken when they, that's NHL. But for Seattle, I think that's a really good idea. If you bring a team to Washington for the UFL, I really like that suggestion right there. And there's only so much a man can take. There's a time and place for everything, all in due time. Yes. And, I stand corrected. I forgot about the Blue Bombers. My bad. Hey, man, sometimes I forget about the Blue Bombers when they're not playing all that great, but I got to give them the credit where it's due. And for that, I'm going to stick with the Blue Bombers being the lone team of Winnipeg. When you think about teams like in the United States, like in Texas, in the UFL situation at least, where you have one too many teams, I think it's time for the San Antonio Brahmas to go. You can keep the other two. You can keep the Houston Roughnecks. You can keep the Arlington Renegades. But I don't think that you keep the San Antonio Brahmas. You move them somewhere else. You can keep calling the Brahmas, just not in San Antonio. I know I went on a bunch of different rants today, mainly within the realm of professional football. My post game went a little different because I just felt it was necessary to at least announce the upcoming changes. There is changes. I've gotten to that point. Unless something severely changes my mind over this weekend, and I doubt it, this is where we're at. I'm here, and I'll explain more about it next week. But right here and now, for episode 89 of Total Football Talk, there's definitely been an interesting one. Going forward, at least until the NFL season, we're probably going to have this show at around an hour and a half or so. It's not going to be a 2-hour show for the most part. It's going to probably be anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes based on the fact that there's no UFL to mix with the CFL. CFL only has, 4 games a week, and we're only going to be recapping those 4, along with whatever there's news in the Gridiron Scoop. And to be honest, now with it being June, between now and September, the beginning of September, when NFL regular season starts, there's really not a whole lot to report there. We're reaching in certain aspects, just like the main media is. So our primary coverage is going to be CFL. Unless anything drastic happens between now and next week, the plan is for Ryan McCarthy to come back next week for episode 90 and hopefully be here for a few upcoming weeks before, having to depart for other things. So shout out to Ryan for taking the time to be here last week for 88. Shout if he can still make it here next week for 90 and beyond. And, shout out to everybody else who's had a hand in this project, who's had a hand in being part of the live comments, and who showed up each and every week, whether it's during the live stream or in the replay, to provide support for myself and for Cole, leading up to this point. I'll have more to say next week in the post game based on the result of what you'll see throughout episode 90. But for right now, we've only got one more thing left to do, and that is to say Cole saying one more time, followed by my own. Like in football, in life, keep your head up. And remember, you got to play until the whistle blows. And as always, please, for myself, you, your family, everybody out there that cares about you, please stay safe out here in these streets. You don't have to go home. But you got to get your cell phone up out of here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to Total Football Talk. Now, episode 89 in the books. We'll see you next week for number 90.